afternoon. It's Wednesday. I always like Wednesday because that means that we're halfway through the week. Oh, today we got a good show on foster life. If you have been tuning in because you think you or your family might want to become a foster parent, today is your day because we're going to go through the whole process on how to become a foster parent. And there's a lot of detail to it. They take this pretty seriously, the state and the federal government, as they should. And so we're going to tell you about that process and kind of what to expect. If you're currently a foster parent, we're going to be going through a little bit of the quarterly visits and what you can expect when your social worker comes every 3 months to your home on those quarterly visits, and what you can do to kind of prepare so that that goes smoothly, not only for the social worker, but for your family as well. And then lastly on today's show, we're going to be talking about the relicensing process. You have to relicense every 2 years. Your license is only good for 2 years, and they kind of go in and they do an abbreviated maybe process. It's kind of like the initial process, but not so intense. And then we're going to talk about the training that you need to have and training hours and all of that type of stuff when that relicensure comes up, and the best way to make sure that that all happens so that you can be effective in being a foster, kinship, or adoptive parent in Fosterland. Right here on Foster Life, we're going to address all these issues. We'll be back right after these messages from our sponsor. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Rob with Foster Life, and we are so glad that you took time out of your day to spend with us at Foster Life. We are talking today about how to become a foster parent, quarterly visits, relicensing, and then lastly, training. And so I want to start out with, if you are thinking about becoming a foster parent, or you know that somebody that's thinking about becoming a foster parent, kind of the process that we go through in order to do that. So the first thing is you want to have a real conversation with your family, and include your kids in that conversation as well. This is a big life change. It's no different than if you're getting married, having a baby, a death in the family. It's a huge life change. And so I would encourage you to sit down with your spouse, sit down with your family, your kids, and even sit down with some of your extended family, brothers, sisters, mom and dad, and make sure that they understand what it is that you want to accomplish by doing this. And the reason why you want to do that is for a couple of reasons. One, everybody kind of needs to be on board, especially your spouse and your kids. If they're not on board, this could be a real rocky process and really a hard process for your family. Secondly, not only do you want them on board, but you want to make sure that they're on board so they understand what kinds of changes are coming in your life so that they can encourage you. Because what you're about to do is going to be take a little bit of time to get it rolling, and it's going to take some commitment from you and your family. So the second thing that you want to do is you want to call your local social services or DFS office. We have found that it's probably best to license with the state or DFS locally and follow kind of their guidelines. One of the things we found is when we license with a third-party agency, when they started doing some things that we didn't agree with and some things that were a little bit shady, we couldn't get our license back to the state because the state is so busy in our state that they weren't willing to take on a new family because we weren't looking for new foster kids. We were just waiting for our adoptions to happen. And we actually had to hire an attorney, and it was a lot of money and that type of thing. So I would really encourage you, just license with the state, call DFS or your local social services. Tell them you want to become a foster parent and you'll want to talk to a licensing worker. After you've done that process, they're going to set an appointment, and they're going to come out for just an initial consultation, or I would say like an interview, to see why it is that you want to be a foster parent and kind of look at your family dynamic and that type of thing, and just kind of explain how the process works. And so when they do that, that's a good time for any questions that you may have with your family, that you can ask that worker and see exactly what it is that you want to do, and ask those questions at that time. Once you've decided that you want to move forward, the very next process that you're going to do is a home study. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about the home study coming up in our next segment, but you'll get that home study set up, and you're going to find out where you can take foster parenting classes locally. There's so many hours of training that you have to go through in order to become a foster parent. Now, in our state, and I would think in most states, those can be arranged like on a Saturday or a Sunday or different days, so that you can work your work schedule around that if you're going to be a working foster parent and you're going into the foster world, or the foster career, as I say. So you'll want to start that training, and you'll go through all of that, and then once you've done that, you got your home study done, everything is ready to roll. You'll have your first home inspection, and then which is like our quarterly inspection, and then you'll be ready for placement for a foster child in your home. So that's kind of the overview of the process. And we come back after these messages, we're going to kind of get into the bones of it all and talk about how that process kind of works, and what these things are that we were talking about and what you can kind of expect. It's all coming up next, right here on Foster Life. Welcome back to Foster TV, Foster Life. Today we are talking about becoming a foster parent, quarterly visits. After you become a foster parent, every quarter, the state needs to come in, your licensing worker, and do an inspection on your home and get updated information. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're also talking about once you've been a foster parent for 2 years, we have to relicense, and what that process looks like in foster land. So if you're a current foster parent, kinship parent, adoptive parent, some of this might be a refresher for you, but it's also kind of a good reminder. And then if you want to become a foster parent, I hope this information is really, really valuable for you. In our first segment, we talked about home studies for a new foster home. Basically, a home study is an interview. It's just like a job interview. They're going to come in. They're going to talk to you about how you grew up, your family dynamic, how many siblings you had, are they still alive? Just get a bunch of history about your family. If you have a spouse or a partner, they're going to do the same. Talk about how they grew up, kind of what their family dynamic was, how the relationships are now, all of that type of stuff. Who's still living, that type of thing. After they've went through the history, they're going to start focusing on your family. What does your family dynamic look like now? If you have kids in the home, have you guys talked to them about fostering and what that's going to look like? What are some of your holiday traditions that you do? Do you go to church? Do you not go to church? Do you guys have a special thing? In our home, we're vegan. So that's something that goes into our home study so that they know when they're placing a kid, oh, this is a vegan home, they eat vegan. So all of that type of thing, your family dynamic right now, they're going to update all of that information as well. After they've done that, they're going to take a look at your home. And they're going to go through it. They're going to look at the size of your home, how many bedrooms you have, if you currently have kids, what those bedrooms are set up like, where you plan to use rooms to foster. They're going to look at where you keep things, just kind of go through your home and tell you, number one, what types of things are going to need to change. And then they're also going to tell you, kind of show you some suggestions. They might just take notes, whatever. Usually during that process, it's a good time to talk to them about what type of kids that you're looking to take. Are you only going to take teenagers? Are you only taking babies? Are you going to stay at home when you foster? Or are you going to work? So be a working foster parent. They're going to look at all of that. Now, a myth. You do not have to own your home to foster. You can rent an apartment or a house or whatever. And a lot of people think, oh, I can't foster because we don't own our home. That's not true. You can foster. So that's a myth. But they're going to really just kind of go through and interview you for a couple of hours and one, see what your plan is, and two, not only are they going to see what your plan is, but they're also going to get a lot of information. Also during that time, you're going to sign a release for an FBI background check, a background check for the state, and then a background check for every state and county that you've ever lived in. And so you're going to sign that release there. They're also going to get you information because you're going to need to get fingerprints done and also get your photo taken. And like here in our state, you can do that at the UPS store. So you go online, you get it all set up, put in all your information. It gives you a number, and then you go to the UPS store, and then they take your picture, fingerprint you, all of that fun stuff. But there will be stuff in your county where you can get all of that done as well. On those background checks, everyone that we've ever done, they give them the information, but then they'll also send you the information in the mail. From what I understand, what they're looking for on a background check, they're not looking to see if you had a speeding ticket. They're not looking for misdemeanor type things, little things, because we all have a past. Every one of us has done something. What they're really looking for is, do you have any, violent crimes that you've committed, theft, big things, felonies, things that, have you served time in prison, have you been picked up for child crimes, any of that type of thing. That's what they're really looking for in those background checks. But you'll get the information as well. They'll get the information, and then you go and you get the fingerprints done and you get your picture taken, and then basically you are ready for the next step. The next step is you're going to find classes that you can do. And each state requires you to do so many hours of training And those are usually centered around like on a Saturday, and they're usually all-day classes. You have to complete those classes before you can foster. We'll be back right after this message and talk more about fostering right here on Foster Life. Welcome back to Foster Life. We're talking today about getting licensed, quarterly visits, and relicensing right here on Foster Life today. So we've went through the basic process of how to become a foster parent. So you become a foster parent, you have your first placement, they're in the home, everything's going smooth. You need to know every 3 months the worker is going to come into your home, the licensing worker, and do a quarterly visit. And you might think, what's a quarterly visit? What are we looking at doing? So a quarterly visit, one, there are certain things that you have to do in your state that you're required to do to be a foster parent. In our state, you have to have a fire extinguisher on each level of the house. So we have 2 levels. We have one upstairs and we have one downstairs. One, you're required to lock up all medication. And I think even if your state doesn't require that, it's probably a really good thing to do. Because like we take in behavioral kids, so we have some, we have some meds. I'm talking meds. So you have to lock all of those up. You have to lock up all of your cleaning supplies. Any cleaning supplies that you may have. In our state, you have to have a fire detector in each bedroom, and then you have to have a carbon monoxide detector as well. And they're going to want to make sure that those work and that they work well. If you have pets in the house, you have to have updated vaccination records for those pets to make sure that if a child gets bit or whatnot, they're not going to have rabies, that type of thing. They're going to want to see your updated car insurance information, so making sure that you have car insurance and proof of insurance, and then they're going to want to see your car registration on each vehicle just to make sure that that's all up to date, up to par, and ready to go as well. If a child is in a room that is on a 2-story, they're going to wait to make sure that you have a ladder that can go out of there. We have one of those chain ladders where you hook it on the window and then it goes down, and then the kids could get down that way. So they're going to want to see that as well. They also are going to want to see that somewhere in the house you have posted emergency numbers for your workers, and then also an evacuation plan and where you would go for a tornado, a fire, any type of thing, what the plan is and where that's posted in your home. So that's one of the things they're going to look for. Then they're going to go through and they're going to ask you some questions. They're going to ask you, has the family dynamic changed at all? Has anybody moved into the home? Anybody moved out of the home? All of that type of information. They're going to update if you have any firearms or weapons. And they're also going to want to see that those are locked up during your quarterly visit as well. But they'll ask if you have any new firearms or new weapons, that type of thing. And there's just a series of questions that they're going to ask for you. Now, what I like to do when I know that my quarterly's coming up is I like to have the car registration all copied have all my proof of insurance copied, my driver's licenses copied for every driver in the house, and make sure that I just have it ready so I can hand it to our worker and they can go through and do their job. It makes it easier for you, makes it easier for them. The more that you're prepared for this quarterly inspection, the more they're going to, number one, appreciate you because time is valuable, but the smoother it's going to go for you. So once you've gone through a quarterly inspection, it's really good to be prepared because you're going to get them in and out of there quickly, and you'll soon find, as you become a foster parent, that time is everything, and so you want things to go smoothly, and you want those to be ready to go, and then that way. If there's anything that you need to change in your home, that's the time they're going to tell you. They're going to say, okay, I noticed that you have a child who is whose bedroom is right across from the furnace and hot water heater and stuff. If they're in care, they cannot do that. Or I noticed that you had a child whose mattress is on the floor. We require them to have a bed. And so we need to, get that. So anything that you need to change, they're going to tell you right there at that quarterly inspection. And then they're going to make sure that that's done in a timely manner. So you can expect that as well. Also on your quarterly, they're going to tell you about any new mandatory trainings that are coming up and any changes that they've had in the foster care policies or procedures for kids in care. And they'll make sure that you understand all of that during the quarterly visit. When you come back, we are going to talk about training, because you have to have so many hours of training every 2 years to continue to foster. We'll talk about that coming up on Foster Life.
Hi folks, it's Mama T here with Mama T's Cooking Big. Join us for the Foster Christmas Challenge.
Welcome back to Foster Life. Today we're exploring how to become a foster parent, quarterly visits, and relicensing. All things that we have to do in order to be a foster parent and have a fostering career. So, training. Training is huge. So there's so much training that you have to have before you become a foster parent. You have to have the foster parent training, which is several hours. You have to be certified in CPR, in the Heimlich maneuver, which is usually one class, the choking, all of that stuff. And then if you're going to have elevated needs kids in your home, so kids that have elevated behaviors, you have to have that elevated needs training as well. And your state probably calls all of this crap something different than we call it, but those are some of the things that you have to have. And you have to have so many hours within those first 2 years. Those hours are easy to get because you're a new foster parent and there's so much that you have to do. Then when your CPR training runs out every 2 years, you have to take that CPR class again, get recertified, make sure that they have that information so that you can get relicensed. And there's going to be mandatory trainings. For instance, if you're looking at adopting, you have to go through several other hours about adopting and all of that before you can adopt. And that's a whole nother program, but it's required. So there's required training, and then there's trainings that aren't required. But in our state, and it probably depends on your state, some of the training that you can get is from books that you read or videos that you watch online. And then you have your required training, and then they'll give you a bunch of other options for training. And we've gone to a lot of different things. Sometimes in your state, if you have a foster support group that meets and you're talking about fostering, sometimes they'll count that as training. We have a thing called First Steps here, which is a program that provides physical therapy, occupational therapy, we have a program here called First Steps, which provides physical therapy, occupational therapy, different play therapy, that type of thing with our kids with special needs. But because they're training us as foster parents on how to do that with our kids, they count that as training hours. So there's lots of different ways that you can get your training. Here's what I want to encourage you to do. Always do your training over the 2 years. We didn't understand when we became foster parents that the hours that we did in the first 2 years fall off after 2 years, and then you have to have so many new hours. So in your 2 years, when you start, you want to keep doing training because those apply to your new hours for the next 2 years that you're going to foster. Those will transfer over for you. And so if you have to have 35 hours. So this year our license was up, and little did we know that we needed to have 35 hours of training, and we were supposed to be licensed in like 3 months. So me and my partner, we were in training all the time, every Saturday. We were going to trainings, filling out sheets, doing stuff online, reading books, whatever we could to get all that training done. Now we got it done, but that could have helped up our relicensing if we wouldn't have had that done. So training is really important, and I just encourage you to do a little bit over the 2-year course, and then it won't be so much when you come up for your relicensing. Now when you come up for your relicensing, basically what you did in the beginning is basically what you're going to do again. They're going to come in and they're going to update your home study. Make sure that's done. They're going to come in and they're going to interview your kids that are in the home. Make sure that's done. They're going to come in and see what your new path is for fostering for the next 2 years. Make sure that's done. They're going to do a quarterly visit. Make sure that you still have everything in place. Make sure that everything's working, everything's good. You're going to redo your fingerprints and your photo. You're going to redo your background check. They're going to basically just go through everything they did in the beginning, kind of abbreviated because they don't have to do that full home study, but they're going to make changes to it. And then you're going to sign on for another 2 years and get your license. So it's quite the process. But I think it's a good process because it keeps them in your home, helps you to know what's going on. And also, by having them that involved, say you need services. Say you have a kid that has health issues and you're struggling in whatever area. A lot of times that licensing worker, when they come, can give you other services that they have through the state that might help you with that as well. So when we come back, we're going to be wrapping up. Today we're talking about becoming a foster parent, quarterly visits, and how to get relicensed after 2 years. We'll wrap up right after this on Foster Life.
Join our Foster Christmas Challenge. It's easy.
Share this video to your Facebook page and go shopping for kids 0 to 19 years old.
Then take a picture or a short video and post it on the Foster TV fan page. And then drop it off at a local social services or a DFS office.
I'm just here because I'm here.
That's it. Don't forget to challenge your friends.
Merry
Christmas! We're single.
Not me.
Not me either.
Why you're getting these messages for the Foster Christmas Challenge, and we haven't even had Thanksgiving yet. We have 439,000 kids in care in the United States. So it's going to take us a minute to get everybody educated on how they can get involved and get Christmas for these kids. So I really need you to share this video today on your Facebook page. And after you've shared the video, then get involved. It's real simple. Just go out and do some Christmas shopping. You can buy for anybody from newborn to 19 years old. Get them whatever you want. Then take some pictures and video with your family, with the gifts that you got, or by yourself. You can get one thing or lots of things. Then post those pictures and videos on our Foster TV Facebook page. that keeps us accountable to make sure that we reach those 10,000 families that are going to support the 439,000 kids in care. Then simply deliver your gifts to DFS or Family Services, and they'll make sure that they get to the foster families in your area. Then go back to Facebook and challenge 3 of your friends to do the same. We need to spread the word, and we got a short time to do it, but we want to reach 439,000 foster kids in care and make sure that they get the Christmas they deserve. Hey, I'm going to see you next time on Foster TV. Thanks for your support. Foster Christmas Challenge. Do it!